I want to look at environmental change in terms of adjusting or altering the natural flow of water, flow of rivers. And so we're going to look at dam construction in particular in increasingly affluent, increasingly populated China, there with the Three Gorges Dam. Here's a simple animation to showcase how so many cities of such size were flooded. And so if you think about along a river, most of the populations live for various reasons, transportation, food source, what have you. But that dam was constructed there in China, and what it essentially flooded cities to the north, to be behind the dam, essentially backing up all that flow that was controlled via the dam. Much of China's growth population-wise has been found along this river here, the Yangtze River. So the Three Gorges Dam, what it's done is it's allowed ships to come further into the Chinese continent, going further deeper in from the Pacific Ocean, the East China Sea. And so now that city out here, Chongqing, that was probably a horrible translation there, Chongqing, but this city here now is actually growing big time. It was previously just a rural town, but because the Three Gorges Dam allows ships to go further inland, this actually has caused the city to grow very, 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 very quickly. Just to show this, massive scale and size of this project here, this is one side of the Three Gorges Dam. This would be the downstream side. Now we have the upstream view here, so this is going to be behind the dam. And so here we can see how this dam is, using the flow of this river to generate, capture that energy and generate electricity from that, and provide that for obviously as an energy source for humans. So one of the things is you can see the muddier waters being churned up from all those turbines spinning from that flow of water. But one of the negatives of the Three Gorges Dam is now all that soot and debris is starting to collect on the backside of that dam. So beforehand, water would just naturally take this to the ocean. Now it's starting to get backed up behind the walls of the dam. And so, of course, in China, with all those people, you got to put them to work. And so you actually have humans go do the work in terms of removing some of that trash and debris from behind the dams. Here's a Chinese sturgeon, who's been around for nearly 140 million years here in the Yangtze River. So one of the things, the Sturgeon River, one of the things is this guy has been, for 140 million years, just making this natural migration from the East China Sea further inland and back. Going back and forth for reproduction purposes. And so what's happened is the dam has essentially blocked that natural flow, that natural migration that the sturgeon's been doing for 140 million years, and it was close to being extinct. It's been since saved, but for 140 million years this thing has been surviving, and then boom, all of a sudden the idea that it could be almost extinct just in a few short years here after the Three Gorges Dam was constructed. The Sturgeon, the Yangtze River, is the world's largest hydroelectric power project, and so it has many positives, but also some negatives. Some positives, it provides a whole lot more electricity, and once again, that's a rather natural capturing of energy rather than coal, oil, which obviously produces pollution. Further, it's allowed ships to go further upstream. This is seen as something that was actually an improvement for transportation purposes. And further, this is an area that floods quite a bit. And so there's been lots of flooding disasters that's happened over the history here and along the Yangtze/Sturgeon River, and so to control that would be rather useful. Further, a lot of people who were removed from a particular area there when their town was flooded were provided resettlement offers that actually helped to increase their standard of living. And so this was maybe seen as a way that resettlement was seen for many as a way to actually improve their way of life, improve their wealth. Further, speaking of increasing wealth, this provided a lot of jobs. This is a massive project in terms of its construction. However, some key negatives, like we just mentioned, there was some loss of species habitat, so we have some endangered species that have popped up because of this. Further, the river pollution that has collected back behind that dam, along with silt, has started to collect behind that dam, and so there's a lot of having to remove that silt has become quite burdensome. Further, the resettlement, a lot of people, removing people from their where they've lived their entire life, loss of property can be seen as a negative. Further, a lot of cemeteries and burial sites and sacred places, which, keep in mind, we've got 14 cities or something like that, nearly the size of Fort Wayne, that were essentially flooded. Essentially, you remove that scenery, remove those relics from a particular area as they essentially are now underwater. But probably the biggest negative of them all is the Shangjang and the Three Gorges Dam is actually along a fault line. So here we have a tectonic activity area in which a little bit of shaking can actually cause this dam to completely cave in and actually cause, once again, massive flooding from that. So it can be seen as quite the negative, potentially.